This is the Holocard gimmick. Now up close you can tell there are several slits in the card, and that is what creates the invisible card effect. Now on the back you can see that there's a little bit of a lever, if I can call it that allows me to open and close this card. Of course, this is the craziest looking gimmick that I've ever seen, hopefully that you've ever seen, but I promise you that this is a lot of fun to make. It takes time to make, but it is not truly difficult to make it, and you will see that in the tutorial. I think I'll throw it over to Kaylin. Enjoy Holocard, everybody. Thank you.
Yo, this is Kaylin Morelli, and welcome to the Holocard instruction video. This is such a cool optical deception. This really teaches you about how perspective can be controlled and shifted. Jared has come up with a really fun method where it's focused on taking the perspective of an object, split into parts, and moving it from flat to vertical towards audience's eye or the lens of the camera. And when that's done in synchronicity in many small parts, it creates a really, really interesting illusion of invisibility. I know that you've seen it, but just the basic mechanical workings, just in case you're not following yet, is that all of these pieces are connected to the border of the card and to these two levers that move them all vertical in synchronicity. And when faced at the correct angle, you get the illusion, and wow, just looks great. So we're going to teach you how to build this. There's two different versions, like the HD and the 4K version. One's 8 pieces, one's 12 pieces. It's just a matter of time, so you get to pick. And also we're going to teach you about just all the angles, the lighting, the best backgrounds to use. Like all these things, because it is an optical deception, matter. And they matter a lot, actually. So kind of try to like fall in love with the details. And I know that you're going to really, really dig this. Right now, we're going to talk about the differences between the 8 slit and the 12 slit version. One is going to be a little bit easier to make. Right? The PDF that you get right here, that is the template to make the 12 cut version so that you don't have to measure things out. If you choose to make the 12 slot version, it's going to take a little bit more time. The pieces are going to be a little bit smaller, and you're going to have a little bit more patience. But if you want to just do the basic version, which is the 8 cut version, then just go ahead and disregard all this. But I'm just going to go over for the people that want to put in the extra time. This is what you're going to do. You're going to cut out the template. You're going to put a piece of double stick tape across the card. You're going to trim off the gray area on each side so that you get rid of that. And then you're just going to cut down each line. And then you'll notice that you'll just have the pieces 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And that's going to just be like your puzzle pieces that you're going to put together so that you don't have to measure anything. If you want to do this, just follow along with the same instructions as the 8 cut version, which is in the tutorial, but just do it with 12 pieces. So the method is the same. It's just the amount of pieces can vary. So I just wanted to go over that to make that really clear. And now these are the things that you're going to need for either version. These are just the basic materials. You're going to need some scissors. You're going to need a ballpoint pen to poke through the card to get the cut started, to get rid of the centers of the card for the borders. You're going to need some matte clear tape, some double stick tape, and also 6 to 7 playing cards, just a handful of playing cards. We recommend making the Holocard gimmick, the strips, out of a face card, because then you can kind of show flash the front of the gimmick if you so choose to. The only other thing is if you want to use glue to glue the borders together instead of double stick tape, that's an option, but that's just like a preference that some people have. So I'm going to teach it with double stick tape. So now that you know the items that you need and you're aware that the process is the same whether you use the 8 or the 12 cut version, The only thing different is you're going to use a template for one, and you're just going to follow the instructions directly as is for the 8-cut version. Let's get into the build. Take a deep breath. It's a lot to look at all at once, but I promise you that you can do this. You're going to start with taking just a normal ballpoint pen and punching a hole inside the center of the card so that you can start the cut. Just be careful. Also with the scissors, obviously be careful. You're going to cut out the center of the card, only leaving the white border. Try to do that well and with precision. Now you're going to cut off each side of the border of a new card. Also, try to take into account precision. Now you're going to half the card, and then you're going to half each piece until you have 8 pieces. So it's just in half again, and then you take that half and you half it once more so that you will have 8 pieces. So I'm going to finish doing that with the entire card. There's a quarter of it, and we'll do it with the first half. We'll get 4 pieces. This does not have to be perfect. It just has to be as close as you can do, as to the best of your ability. So there's half again, half of that piece, and then we would half the last piece so that we have eyeballed the card into 8 pieces, and it's pretty easy. So now that you have that, we are now going to make the tape dispenser. Just take some tape, place it on another playing card, and doesn't have to be perfect, but we are going to cut through the tape and the playing card in a second. And this is going to be the thickness of a border of a playing card. Doesn't have to be perfect, but just to the best of your ability. We can trim it later if needed. Just make sure that you're doing it the thickness of a border of a playing card or a little bit less. And you can always make more of these. Okay, so now we have the tape, the card, and the border. So we're going to start making your hollow card gimmick. So you're going to start at one end, and you're going to notice how you can line it up inside the border. The piece will go on the back of the bordered card, and you're going to place tape on each side of the piece, and you're going to line up to the best of your ability just to make sure that you're creating a hinge that doesn't have any gaps. Small gaps are okay, and make sure to trim the excess tape on each side as you go. You want it to be as neat as possible. So now you're creating small hinges, almost like a window shutter. So you're going to take the next piece, line it up. Make sure to take your time. This is not difficult. It just needs to be as close as possible. It'll just make the illusion hit that much harder. And as you're doing it with the tape, just remember that you can restick it, reposition it, and just take your time. So as you can see, you're going to do this with all 8 pieces. Now, you'll notice that all these pieces as they go just kind of fit right into place, and you just want to keep them as snug as possible. And as we get all the way to the 8th piece in just a second, you notice the last piece you are going to do slightly different. You want to make sure that none of the tape is hindering the other pieces from moving. On this piece, you're going to pretty much just overlap it right over the edge of the card once it's lined up, just to make sure it's secure. So you'll do that, line it up, and then just go ahead and fold it over. And doesn't have to be perfect. Once again, we're going to trim it. You can always trim the edges of the card and the tape, and then we're just gonna fold it over. Okay. You notice that I'm having a little bit of a difficult time because it's so small. So if you're having a little bit of a rough time and it takes extra time, that's okay. And then I trim the corners. Boom. It's looking good. We've got a card that now has all of the window shutters secured in place. And then we're gonna make them all move under the same mechanical device. So start with punching another hole in another card, and we're gonna create another border, and this border will just put some double stick tape on it. You'll notice we're just gonna put it on the long edges. The double stick tape will just go on the front of the Holocard gimmick. What we're gonna do, the reason for this, just so you understand, is to make it a little bit more sturdy. The more sturdy the gimmick is, it's just gonna create an easier use. So you do it on both sides, both of the long ends, and then we're just gonna stick it on the front. And just take your time with this so it looks good on the front, so you get a nice lineup. And smack that sucker down. Boom. Okay, so now we're gonna add the mechanisms that make all of the pieces move at once. So to start out with, we're just gonna put tape on the underside of each piece. Now that's gonna start on the piece that is pretty much flush with the border, so the non-gap side. And you'll notice I'm just putting it on the width of the border, and I'm gonna have to trim the thickness of the next flap to the right, and then trim the top so that when there's something stuck over top of it, it's not going to hinder the other flaps from moving. So we have trimmed the width to a little bit under the thickness of the next flap and the top, so it looks nice. So we'll just let you see how this looks, and obviously we have to do the bottom as well. So as we go through, we're just going to be doing this. And remember, take your time. There's no rush. It's cool. So we have that working. Now there's gonna, this is the most time consuming part. All of them have to happen. So once that happens, it should look like this. And we leave the end pieces of tape all the way out. So the end pieces are not trimmed because they will wrap over the lever gimmick. So just carefully look at this and follow along. So now we're going to need to make some levers. So just cut off the borders of another card, like plain card. Any card will do. And we are going to now just place this over the tape. So the tape is now going to adhere to it, and we're going to press that down so that when that piece is lifted up, it's going to move all of the pieces up at once. Okay, so we'll do it on the top as well, sticking it down. You want to make sure that you stick it down well because they all need to be stuck. You'll notice that right now some of them are getting caught, and this will be easier once your gimmick gets worked in. And you'll notice even the first time I open it, it just is a little bit cumbersome, and that's okay because we're just gonna do that. Now I've folded over the pieces of tape on the ends, and I'm going to trim them. So now it's all, you'll notice one piece got dislodged, so I probably didn't stick it down enough. So I'll just press a bit more. Cool. Now, don't force it if it's not opening. You have to kind of just open them and get them used to opening and get the spacing correct for it to open smoothly, and that just comes with working in your gimmick. It's easy enough. So now you're going to notice on the non-gap side, we're going to have some long pieces. Now we're going to trim these in two waves, so we're going to start with just trimming them, and then we're going to trim them to as close as possible without cutting the tape or the card. We're going to trim them a bit more to just be flush with the first window shutter. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and I'm just going to take my time. Okay, I've done that so you can see clearly. And now we're going to place some tape over top of this flap just to secure it. So one piece goes at the top, and that will get trimmed off. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then also after this, we obviously are going to do the opposite side, and that will go there. Presses down. Whoops, gotta readjust it. Perfect. And then that gets trimmed as well. So essentially what you've done is you've created a window shutter with a playing card. All right, so you should now have successfully made your first gimmick. Now, this I'm impressed with if you followed all the way through, because I know that for people that don't build a lot of arts and crafts, this may be a little overwhelming, but pat yourself on the back. You made it through. And to be honest, the more times that you make one, the better it will be. But I made about 3 before I felt like I actually understood how to make these. And, that's up to you, though. The only other thing right before we get into the activation is that you're going to have to hold it really lightly, because you don't want the cards bending and you don't want to ruin the gimmick. So if you want to add another border to the top to make it more sturdy, or if you want to add another card strip to the top or bottom lever just to make that a little bit more sturdy, do that as you need. Just be aware of how it visually looks, and if it looks too thick, don't go that far with that many layers. So the activation method is really, really simple. The first thing that you need to know is that you're going to leave the card slightly open, okay? Now you're probably thinking, okay, it's open, how does it look opaque? You're just going to, if the slits are going this way, we're going to turn it at an angle towards the audience or the lens, and you'll notice if it's flat, you can kind of see through it. So we're going to tilt it slightly, and that's the angle that you want to hit. So we can see that it's slightly open. What it will do with this is this will make sure that the pieces don't overlap, and also it will make sure that this lever to activate it with your middle finger is easy to get to. So you're going to hold it with your first finger and thumb, just like that. And then you're going to just learn to move it with your middle finger. And you'll notice that you have to do a little bit of tilt action from this position to this position as you open it up. You also notice a little bit of movement makes it look good. So just practice in the mirror, practice just hitting that angle so that you can really get it to look invisible. Yeah, that looks nice. Now, let's go over the lighting, the background, and kind of the best viewing angles, all right? So the background matters a lot. You can use playing card fans. You could use just normal backgrounds like shirts, like I've been using. The key though is you want to use a lighter background, okay? So like a white or a gray with a little bit of a design. So keep those in mind as like the ideal, and just play with it. Like I'm sure that there's backgrounds and ways to camouflage these lines once it's open that that we just haven't come up with. So I'm sure that you can come up with some really cool ways. The goal though being is that you want these lines when they're open to be as invisible as possible. You don't want to see the lines. They won't always go away, but the goal is like, to get it as much as possible. So the only other thing that you need to know about the lighting is if it's slightly open, you know that there's going to be light going through it. So you want to make sure that even though you're hitting the correct angle, there's enough front light to make the card, the color of the red, look bright. You'll notice this looks best with a red card, and you'll also notice that if there's kind of shadows, it starts to look a little off red and not super realistic. So you want to make sure that it looks like a normal card in the beginning and it doesn't suss people out from the get-go. So all these things kind of come with just playing with it and playing with the angles, playing with the lighting. I'm sure that just playing with it for an hour or two, you'll have fun, and you'll also really start to understand the reasons of why it works, the lighting that doesn't work. You can go into different parts of your house to just play around with it, different lighting if you're a YouTuber. So it's really, really just like playing with it and figuring it out for yourself so that you can understand it. So now you have all the information needed to do this optical deception holocard. This is very, very cool, and really just take your time to learn it, take your time to make the gimmick, and really play around with the best ways to make it the most invisible that you can, because that's kind of the game with optical deceptions. It's to figure out in your own hands and in your own lighting space how to make it look the best, and that's really kind of the art to it. So make sure that you take time to do that, and I know that you're gonna really, really dig it. So thanks for supporting this project, and have fun with it.